Joining us now at the table, Ali Vitale, host of Way Too Early and MS Now senior congressional reporter, and David Drucker, MS Now contributor and senior writer at The Dispatch. Thank you both for coming on. Ali.
I'm not over the dramatic reading.
I'm turning into a Broadway person, so I've been practicing at home. Maybe one day I'll end up on stage. But Ali, I want to start with you because President Trump's tweet yesterday is proof positive that Thom Tillis and John Cornyn, what they had been saying this whole time is true, that they know that Donald Trump isn't moving away from this, that this proof is this written down signature, however you want to do it. That's the only way they're actually going to get some kind of assurance from this administration that it's going away. He's proven their point.
I also just think what Tillis's tweet does is actually say the thing that he had not been previously willing to say, which is like, this is Trump who is keeping the fund alive. Yeah. And Cornyn actually said this to me on Thursday in a way that I heard him be more clear than in any of his gaggles before or since. He said, I am prepared to vote no. I don't want to, but I'm prepared to do it. And then he also said, I said, would a call from the president help if you talk to the president? He said, no. And the president could end this in a second. Mm-hmm. And I think they've been talking about, well, he's getting bad advice from a staffer. I don't know who's telling him not to put this in writing. But DOJ, the problem is they won't put in writing that the fund is dead. And also not just the fund, but that IRS immunity side deal. And that's the part that is the true sticking point. Because the thing Trump is defending is the fund. But I think the thing he's really defending is the one-page side deal with the IRS. Because literally nobody else cares if the Trump family gets immunity from the IRS other than the Trump family. And that's the thing that Cornyn told me he's so focused on. He's like, it doesn't feel right that someone can make that kind of a deal with the DOJ. And that's just what I'm trying to understand why we need it. And that's the true sticking point.
I mean, I'm going to take a page from Jackie. I'm going to push back on you. Only on the point that nobody cares about the IRS immunity deal, because there are a lot of Americans out there who would love to have a deal with the IRS that says, we will not investigate you for anything in your taxes up until, May of 2026. Yeah. So, but you are correct in saying that while the president is being very belligerent and adamant, David, about the $1.776 billion pot for punks. I just love that.
It's such a
alliterative pot for punks. The real issue here is that IRS immunity deal that I'm just wondering, why won't the president just sign it? You get your Roy Cohn officially in if you just do it.
But he's in now.
Yeah, but he doesn't care about Blanche. He cares that Blanche does what he says, right? And the funny thing about this is we start out with this so-called anti-weaponization fund plus the side deal. And then, there's an issue with Blanche. It's like, fine, we'll get rid of the deal. And then they won't actually agree to get rid of the deal. And Trump made very clear that he never agreed with what Blanche was telling the Senate. So now what he's saying is, you don't confirm Blanche, I'm bringing back the deal. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is just typical Donald Trump. He sees the world the way he wants. He does what he wants. And as we've seen, especially this year, he has been focused on the things that matter to him and has not taken care to focus at all on what is required for Republicans to defend their congressional majorities, or even for his own political standing, because he refuses to believe that his political standing is in any way diminished. And, just an ode to Groundhog Day. Mm-hmm. It's like we're all Bill Murray and the movie's been going on for 11 plus years.
Yeah. And also he would keep himself from being investigated if Republicans somehow defied history and won in November. And to remember, for folks that are watching, Blanche is still not out of committee. We're not talking about a floor vote at this point. We're still talking about the committee vote.
And one other point, I'm sorry, Jackie, that you made that people should understand is that even if Blanche isn't confirmed, he will still be acting. He will still be in the position doing Donald Trump's bidding. I'm sorry, Jackie.
No, which gets to this point that Susan Glasser was making yesterday, which has been historically Trump's preference because it gives him a little more leeway to follow through on unorthodox priorities.
He likes that acting thing because it keeps folks on their toes. Like, I can easily get rid of you.
But Ali, I've been very excited to talk to you all week about this because I have not been on the Hill for a few months now, really. And I'm wondering if you can just give us a vibe check, because the one thing that is not Groundhog's Day is the Thom Tillis and the John Cornyn of this all, and why this is now suddenly the red line. And then the other Republican senators who are going to have to answer for this once it does get out of committee? Is this going to soon become a Bill Cassidy problem, a Susan Collins problem?
Yes.
And I don't know, just talk to us a little bit about what it felt like this week in the halls.
I actually had some of my preconceived notions disrupted. And I say that because we talk about this like YOLO caucus. And I think some of you have heard me say this before. You only live once. They're not coming back to Congress. So they're definitely going to start really bucking the administration. And what I say to people about this group, and it's Bill Cassidy, it's certainly John Cornyn, it's Tom Tillis. What I say to this group is like, maybe, but they're all still Republicans, right?
We've called them the NOLO caucus, even though that doesn't make any sense.
I talk about them as you only leverage once because they are trying to get guys. Leveled up. What I think about it as, though, is like they're just trying to get to where they want to go. And so this is actually the perfect confluence of events for someone like a Tillis and like a Cornyn. For Cornyn, because he is someone who was a state AG, who looks at himself as someone who believes in conservative law and order, right? The idea of like a DOJ that shouldn't function just to serve the president. Okay. But then for someone like Tillis, who has consistently said, I want clarity around January 6th, the $1.776 billion fund shouldn't be accessed by people who did an insurrection at the U.S. Capitol and harmed Capitol Police, right?
Rational.
Perfect confluence of events, right? I also think that I was surprised that they are stopping this from going through committee. And we'll see.
Yeah.
Tuesday, they've got it on the docket again. Grassley has said, including to us on Thursday, I just want to get this nominee through successfully. I don't think that's going to happen on Tuesday. So are we going to see a vote where they let it fail and then he's languishing in committee and then you turn back and he's still acting AG and it's like you said, he still has his guy. But if it does get to the Senate floor somehow, and again, my preconceived notion was disrupted because Cornyn looked me in the face and said, I am prepared to vote no, and I hadn't heard him say it that succinctly before.
On the floor?
I'm prepared to vote no in committee, which effectively is the same thing at this point, right?
David, I do want to move on a little bit because there are so many things.
So many.
For the no good, very bad week. Is that what the book is called?
Potpourri.
It is. It's a potpourri, exactly. President Trump in this reflecting pool and his kind of back and forth with Jeanine Pirro, he has said that she is wrong. She went into court where if you actually lie to the court, there are real ramifications. Lying on Truth Social, lying to reporters, unfortunately, that is not against the law, right? For our public officials, they can do that. And so when you look at where we are, I mean, even Doug Burgum, the Interior Secretary, put a statement on X that said, the evidence is clear. The evidence is not clear at all. Vandals have repeatedly caused damage to the reflecting pool. Some of these acts were even caught on camera. We also provided the U.S. Attorney's Office expert and eyewitness testimony to the damage done by vandals and provided every piece of evidence they asked for in the requested timeline, detailing each area of damage at the pool. I believe that this is an administration. If there was actual evidence that this happened, if there was actual evidence, we would have seen it at this point.
They would have put it out.
2 days or 3, maybe that day, that they snatched up the leader of Venezuela, we have pictures of it. Meaning they are not shy of sending out pictures that maybe some people will keep secret for a little bit. So when you look at this and zoom out as it is a part of a larger issue, it's not just about the reflecting pool. It's about how Donald Trump sees the Justice Department. It's how he sees people who work for him. And frankly, it's how he is willing to force people to use all the reams of power to make him correct, even when he's wrong.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that's one of the biggest differences between the first presidency and this presidency, right? Is during the first presidency, the president said a lot of things, but didn't do a lot of things. Whether it's because he chose to honor the guardrails, whether it's because Jared Kushner told him you need to honor the guardrails to win re-election, whether it was all the people around him that said, sir, not a good idea. Whatever the case may be, there were a lot of tweets at the time, but very little disturbing action when you really drill down into it. This time around, not only did he spend 4 years thinking and studying with a team of people how you use executive authority, he basically said, what do you mean I can't run the Justice Department and actually run investigations? What do you mean I can't sidestep Congress in this way or that way? And so he's doing all of those things. And I think that's what has made this presidency so disturbing compared to the first. Ironically, the reason voters are so upset with him is because he's not delivering on the thing they bargained for. Well, you're going to be a little unconventional. Maybe they didn't count on all of this, but they counted on unconventionality. But what they said is, in return, we're going to get the pre-COVID economy, and I can live with that. Now, just one last thing on Jeanine Pirro. This reminds me of the events leading up to January 6th, where the president kept insisting that the election was stolen. And every time Rudy Giuliani went into court, they never had evidence, right? Because lawyers don't want to get disbarred. And lawyers have to tell the truth and present evidence. And Jeanine Pirro, as loyal a soldier as she is, as loyal a soldier as Rudy Giuliani was, court is court, and these people are lawyers, and that's where this all falls apart. And I'm actually, it's very, in a way, I was like, oh, you mean there wasn't vandalism? And so that's been very interesting.
Yeah. Ali, before we go to break, so in all of this stuff, to David's point, people who voted for Donald Trump didn't vote for reflecting pools and those hideously golden statues at the foot of the Memorial Bridge. I went to see them yesterday. My eyes, like Vegas on the Potomac. But let's put up two sets of approval ratings, please.
I'm laughing at Jackie, so she likes them.
What?
I know she's going to.
We're going to have a host chat on that. Quinnipiac poll, President Trump's approval rating. He is at a 58% disapproval, 32% approval. And then the next polling question, is Trump focused on problems most Americans are facing? 68% say no, only 29% say yes. In a conventional world, in a pre-Trump world, these would be numbers that would get the party, the congressional members, the members of Congress of the president's party to run away from him like he was a bad suit.
Yes.
And yet we're not seeing that.
I know. And I think that is one of the vexing things about this moment, especially given the fact that even if you don't apply pre-Trump beliefs of what members of Congress would do, he is a lame duck. Yeah. And so in theory, he should be someone that the party says, OK, we're willing to cut our losses. You look at an issue like immigration and the economy. Those were the bulwarks of Trump's cornerstones of support. He was always seen as more successful in the economy, always seen as the right person to take on immigration. And those numbers have flipped now because they overreached on immigration, because people are looking at what they did in their communities and said, I've had Trump voters say this to me. They voted for him 3 times and then they look at the immigration agenda and they say, I just thought he'd be focusing on the worst of the worst. That's what he told me they'd be focusing on. And I don't get why the overreach is happening, and I don't get why we're seeing Americans killed in Minneapolis. And I think that was a seminal moment, one that I have heard about on the campaign trail. And the other piece of it, too, is I've met Trump voters who actually don't hate what he's doing here in D.C. I met one in Michigan over the weekend who said, yeah, I just feel like Republicans aren't helping him get done what he needs to get done. And I say, OK, what's the thing that they need to get done that would help your life? Well, I don't know, but they're just not doing it. Right. And so I don't think he's helping himself, but I still think that there are voters who want to give him leeway, and that's fine. But for members who have to run in re-election, who don't get the same leeway and have to be beholden to the laws of political gravity, I don't quite understand the strategy. And maybe it's just because we haven't hit September yet and they're hoping for things to normalize in Iran or anywhere else. I don't know. It's vexing.
Yeah, by September, that goose is cooked. Sorry.
Not Ali gesturing to me when she said, I've met Trump voters who like them. But Ali and David are sticking with us.